400 years, the Macdonalds ruled the seas, building a vast empire here in the Highlands and Islands. They became so powerful, they challenged the authority of the kings of Scotland. But ultimately, the struggle for supremacy set father against son in a bloody fight for the very soul of Clan Donald. The Scottish Highlands have been shaped by centuries of clan history. A past overflowing with countless tales of bloodshed and bravery, rivalry and revenge. But I'm making a personal journey beyond the myths and the tartan to uncover the real story of Scotland's Highland clans. Across the world, 120 million people claim clan ancestry, and millions of these belong to probably the biggest and most famous clan of them all, MacDonald. And the story of this mighty Highland clan starts with one extraordinary man. Somerled was the greatest of the Celtic warrior kings. In the 12th century, Rhyn and Yelin, the king of the Isles, defeated the Vikings and rose to such power that he and his descendants, the MacDonalds, challenged the kings of Scotland. My journey starts just off the west coast in the Sound of Mull, where Somerled launched his campaign to defeat the Vikings. 800 years ago, the Vikings raided and pillaged the communities of the Hebrides and all along the west coast of Scotland. And it was here, in the islands, that they built a network of fortresses that allowed them to totally dominate the local population. By the middle of the 12th century, the people of the west coast had endured almost 400 years of Viking oppression. The key to Somerled's eventual victory was naval power. To find out more about the technology that enabled him to defeat the Vikings, I joined the crew of the Ailech, the only working replica of a West Highland galley.
Stroke!
We started with a bit of light rowing.
And stroke!
But it was soon clear we weren't going to win any Olympic medals. Well, they say it's all about rhythm, and I definitely am not in rhythm here. But I can't imagine what it must have been like spending all day at the oars. It must have been absolutely knackering. In the 12th century, Somerled's galleys would have been manned by truly expert mariners. Today's crew are all volunteers who have little experience of sailing this ancient craft. I'm a little worried. The conditions are getting rougher, and hoisting the sail is proving to be rather difficult.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Drop it! Drop it down, down, down!
Once we're back on an even keel, I take the opportunity to ask Galley Master Gordon about how this unique vessel gave Somerled the upper hand in his fight against the Vikings. Gordon, what kind of boat is this? I mean, it looks to me like a Viking ship.
Yes, you're right. She is a descendant of a Viking longship. The main difference is the way that we control the steering. Viking longship would have had what is known as a steerboard, or a steering board. This is where we get the word starboard from.
Steerboard, starboard.
Yes, and it was just basically a big plank that was lashed to the side of the ship. The galley, she has her rudder directly on the stern rather than on the side of the boat. Gives you a lot more manoeuvrability, gives you a sharper turning circle.
And this would have given Somerled a significant advantage, would it?
Oh, very much so. Certainly in battle against the Norse. Yes, very much so.
So you're saying that boats like this would actually go into battle?
Yes, yes. They would. Their first exchange would probably be arrow fire. When they got a little bit closer, within range of throwing a rope, they would throw a grappling hook or axes over, pull the two ships together, lash them together, and then they would be used as a fighting platform.
We're just knocking great lumps out of each other.
Very much
on the
so.
sea.
Yeah, yeah.
At the start of his campaign, Somerled faced seemingly impossible odds. Short on men and firepower, he was forced to rely on guerrilla tactics. But using captured ships, Somerled was able to challenge the Vikings, masters of the seas, at their own game. As his campaign grew increasingly successful, he began to build his own ships, like the Ailach.
So why were these boats important to Somerled?
It was important to him because having the power, he then commanded the seas.
By controlling the sea lanes, was Somerled able to become a king, really?
Very much so, yes. A self-proclaimed king of the west coast of Scotland.
No image of Somerled has survived to this day. So to gain a better picture of this remarkable figure and his importance to the story of Clan Donald, I landed on the Isle of Mull. Author and local historian Kathleen McPhee is taking me to where Somerled's story began.
Kathleen, what kind of man was Somerled?
I think he was a person of tremendous character, determination, intelligence. He it was who had the charisma to rally the people and get them to fight back against the Viking thugs.
How was he connected to this part of the world? Where had he come from and what was his mission?
Somerled was the son of a dispossessed chief, Gillibrigi, who belonged to Morven on this side of the Sound.
So Somerled's interest in this part of the world had to do with a lost inheritance in a sense, and he wanted to grab this back for himself.
Exactly. He gradually started to take over not just Morven, but Mull, which was infested with Vikings, and then Kintyre, Lorne, Midergyle, Knapdale. In fact, he very soon had the whole of Argyll back. I think the idea came into his head that perhaps he could become a king of his own territories.
It sounds as if Somerled was driven by something other than just the desire to get back his patrimony, his inheritance. What do you think that other thing was?
Without him, the whole Gaelic culture and language and presence might have disappeared. He saved it. He started the resurgence of all things Gaelic. And he created a kingdom which actually challenged the King of Scotland.
By 1153, Somerled's Gaelic Empire stretched from Lewis in the north all the way down the west coast to Kintyre in the south. However, to the east lay Scotland, whose young king, Malcolm IV, wanted Somerled's lands for himself. For a decade, an uneasy peace existed between the two kings. But when the Scots began to push west, down the Clyde, into Somerled's territory, the King of the Isles mobilised his forces.
Somerled was 64, now that's almost retirement age for many of us, when he assembled a massive task force of 164 galleys and 15,000 men from across the west coast and the Hebrides. Now this Celtic armada sailed right up the Firth of Clyde, determined to stop the westward advance of the Scots.
Somerled's army disembarked where Erskine Bridge now stands today. The two sides eventually came face to face in what is now a housing estate.
The Battle of Renfrew took place here at Bargaran in 1164. Now obviously this land has long since been built over and is presently occupied by a housing scheme. It's all very peaceful here, so it's almost impossible for us to imagine the brutal scenes that once took place. A titanic clash between two mighty armies struggling to control the destiny of Scotland. So you'd think such a momentous event in our shared history would be remembered somehow. But there's not a monument, a cairn, or even a plaque.
It was here that Somerled, the great warrior king, was finally slain.